topics discussed are used under the copyright law that states, fair use of copyrighted works, for the purposes of criticism, comment, reporting, or research is allowed. Every topic or video researcher will be credited on all episodes. I can share their work, but will not take credit for it. Give them credit they deserve. Thank you.
Trigger warning. The following content may contain certain themes that is not suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to Lovespiracy, and I am your host, Trinity. I have attempted to make this several times because of the content, and hopefully you saw the trigger warning in the beginning. If you decided to stick around, I'm glad that you did, and if you didn't, or you went this far to see what I was going to say, if any kind of content that is disturbing to you, whether it's about children or animals or anything like that, please just click this off. I'd rather you have and think of your well-being than anything else. For everybody else, here we go. So this is literally about child laundering. And per Wikipedia, and I'm going to quote from the site, child laundering rings are often large and involve the black market, with Westerners willing to spend thousands of dollars to adopt a child. There is a monetary incentive to extend the laundering ring from the middle classes to society's more affluent groups. These baby broker families subsequently forge a new identity for the laundered child, validating the child's legal status as an orphan and ensuring the scheme will not be uncovered. There is a complex hierarchy within the child laundering business, which includes governments, orphanages, intermediaries, birth families, and adoptive families. The people who oversee these child laundering rings are estimated to make between $2,000 and $20,000 per overseas adoption. People involved in illegal child laundering adoptions manipulate the legal system for a profit. The process begins when recruiters gain physical custody of the child, who are then often taken to orphanages which arrange the adoptions, where they are sometimes severely mistreated. End quote. So here's what I take from that, and this is going to be, like I said, information that some of it's going to be very analytical. I'm going to have many sources, and then there's going to be very intricate parts of where I'm going to give my opinion, and this just happens to be one. As far as mistreatment and malnutrition, there's a reason for this. Children are more likely to be adopted the worse off they look. Sadly, it's like when you go to a puppy pound, right? And you see two dogs. So one is happy and fat, and the other one looks scared and lonely. Most people will choose the latter. One perfect example is an article by the World Animal Protection.us, that's their website, explaining that YouTube videos of animal rescues are sometimes recorded for entertainment and views by rescuing a kitten or a hurt dog, and almost 65% of the time it's the person recording that causes the damn injuries to get people to click the rescue, and for every click they get paid, right? So I'm sure most of us have seen the videos of elephants painting with their tails. I was seeing this, I mean, it must have been more than a decade. And I think that started the whole animal thing. You know, oh my God, they're so fascinating. They do all of this. Well, I'm here to burst your bubble on that. According to PETA.org, and that's their website, and I quote, to make elephants learn demeaning tricks, handlers beat, shock, and punish them. Through pain and fear, elephants are forced to learn confusing routines that have no connection to their natural instincts and conduct. End quote. That is heartbreaking, to say the least. And the reason why I really don't discuss this with a lot of people is because it's heartbreaking, and it kind of just, when you start going down the rabbit hole and things start hitting you pretty hard, you will literally look at the world in a different way. Yes, I'm not going to lie. Every once in a while, I see this video and I tear up, and I'm just like, and then I just go, I take that brain part and say, oh shit, I know that this is not real. And then it breaks my heart even more than how my heart was broken about the rescue. So anyway, So this is the same thing that's happening to children around the world. I wanted to do this because there's a video by a host named Rashad Ritchie, who is a part of the Young Turks. And his show is called Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. Every time I try to say his name, I get it wrong. Where there's a report of an adoption lawyer who just recently got arrested for targeting incarcerated pregnant women to give up their children and use commissary to persuade them. When a mother changes her mind, she then threatens them by saying that she will talk to their lawyer to tell them that they are in fact committing fraud. Her name, Jody Hall, so that you can look her up. This leads me to a few conclusions. One, there's a huge problem that Dr. Ritchie pointed out, that there should be an ankle bracelet for some pregnant women. And my opinion is so they can give birth at home. And I wanted to expand on that by saying this could help a lot of women getting proper medical care, help from families. Uh, if she's arrested for drugs, she can go to rehab, get parenting classes, and so on. So right now, the reversal of Roe v. Wade is terrifying for so many reasons. The medical implications I will leave out for now. I can't even get into that because that's a whole different show. So I wanted to stay on this particular subject. But this will also cause more people like Jody Hall and people like her, because we all know that it's a well-placed system. To be able to get more so-called adoptions by women who aren't able to get abortions, contraceptives, the day after pill, and so on. Not only should there be an absolute fear of people like Jody Hall, but also those who commit crimes against children. And this is where the trigger warning came into place. Not wanting this video to be removed, I will refer to these types of people and their actions as CAC, which of course will be an acronym for Crimes Against Children. CAC. Keep that in mind as I go along with this. So they were those that commit CAC and have the funds to adopt the child. This is mostly done in other poorer countries, but it's also done here in the US. And then those children will be shipped to those countries where people will ask less questions, right? They're less concerned. They see a person and they see their child and they look similar. Like nobody's really asking any questions about, what you look like and your kid looks like, right? Babies look like everybody. So they're not going to ask any questions. The police don't need to be involved. It's not something awkward or weird. They look like tourists. So anyway. Most people who commit CAC also buy them young. And I say buy because the whole beginning of this is being bought. She was a adoption lawyer. But by using commissary, she was using bribery, which in turn means she was buying the child. No matter where she planned on taking the kid, no matter who was trying to adopt the kid. We have no idea. We just know that she got in trouble for it. So certain individuals will buy them young in order to groom them, sell them, or exploit them. Some cases have even said that even infants are sold. That is scary as hell. Case in point, I'm going to bring up two people, Helmut Kettler and Alfred Kinsey. So the Helmut Kettler thing I'm going to have to read because I never heard of him before until I did my research. So I wrote down a lot of this part. So bear with me. As a side note, I will say that when it's kind of my information, many articles about serious subjects you will find that I will excerpt older articles, film documentaries, and so on, as they are less suppressed back then. Google wasn't really a thing back in the 1990s and the early 2000s. Not what they are today. That's why a lot of people use DuckDuckGo or Start Page, because you will get better results. Like when you use Google, it's like this little bubble, and they only let you see what they want you to see. Like so you go on Google, you look for search, and there's like page 1 and then page 1,000,000, and the only way to find out like the true sense of your search would be to go to like the 1,000,000th page, because they just suppress everything else. So if I happen to do this, I'll give you the year and the site as much info as I can. Because, like I said, a lot of these sites are not up anymore, but a lot of the articles are. And they all have the date and then the person who wrote it. So I'll try to give you as much information. But my basic information will be researchable. Just be careful on what you find, because I had to dig deep for this. So anyway, I'll give you the year, I'll give you the site, I'll give you all the information that I can. I will only discuss very short amounts of this and only add what I think is important. Beware of researching this, as it's more terrifying and uncomfortable. Be careful, because I'm omitting a ton of things from this, just so I can get the message out and not get shadow banned or get this video or this audio removed. Keep that in mind, please. So let's start with Helmut Kettler from Berlin, and Berlin, Germany. From Wikipedia, quote, was a German psychologist, sexologist, CAC apologist, and professor of social education at the University of Hanover from the late 1960s until the early 1990s. Please keep in mind, I said 1990s, 1990. That wasn't 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago. That was in 1990. With the authorization and financial support of the Berlin Senate, Kettler placed several neglected youth ages 13 to 15 as foster children in the homes of single CAC fathers. Kettler believed CACs would make suitable foster parents, and that any CAC would be relatively harmless if not physically forced. Again, CAC, right? Crimes against children. We know what that means. So, in 1976, he was appointed as a university lecturer for the training of vocational school teachers for special education at the University of Hanover, where he taught until his retirement in 1996. Unquote. So now this is terrifying, and I bring this up as this person was educated for decades, the same as the woman who was recently arrested and she was an adoption lawyer. There are people out there in positions of power that control these things behind the scenes. Here's another bit of information. There is also a documentary called The Children of Table 34, which was released in 1994 concerning Albert Kinsey's work. Now, here's the point that I made about DuckDuckGo, Startpage, and Google. When I looked up Albert Kinsey's work, I obviously already knew. I wanted citation. I wanted information that I can give you a link to, or give you some type of information that you can look for yourself. I used Google and I have a VPN, but I looked up through Google first. Couldn't find anything. Everything that had information about the stuff I already knew was a link to a conservative group or religious group, or it sounded outlandish. Their website, there was nothing that I wanted to use as a source. Nothing whatsoever. So I just kept looking, and I just came up with what I was able to find that I knew you could see, physically see, and it wasn't touched, was The Children of Table 34, which, like I said, was released in 1994. It even has an IMDb page. Has no information on it. You have to look that up separately, and you might even be able to find it on YouTube. Anyway, you may be asking, why the hell am I bringing this up? Well, I'll tell you. We're living in a time where we're telling women that no matter what their situation is, they no longer have control of the ability to choose whether they can be responsible for the life of a child, right? Which I'm sure many CACs out there are elated with this decision, as they know there will be more desperate women out there. Those who are more concerned with the right to choose often fail to be concerned with the outcome of a child brought up into this world. There are no programs that truly help. Foster care is overcrowded and rife with people who commit CAC, or with families that neglect them because they just want to check. Adoption for children through the right channels can take years and could cost thousands of dollars. Or the courts are concerned with the type of family dynamic can adopt, especially with same-sex couples and single people. For those that are still saying, yeah, but blah, 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 also refuse to acknowledge that women can have a child in 9 months when a man can impregnate one or more women per week. Literally. A more virile man could literally have, in a month, it could impregnate 12 women. And we don't actually talk about that. So we don't have laws in place for men to use or have basic medical procedures in order to not have children as well. So I'm basically saying that women can have unprotected relations with a man and be forced to give birth, and the father can choose whether he stays or goes. And he also doesn't get a choice for that woman to terminate her pregnancy not being able to provide. So the reason why I brought that up, and I'm of course I gotta play devil's advocate on here. So if a man has a vasectomy, right? First of all, it's inexpensive. It's a walk-in procedure. You don't have any hospital time. You're under regular anesthesia. Here's the thing about that I think they should be able to come up with something better. Um, if a male went in and he got the procedure, for I think it's every year that he has it, he keeps diminishing his opportunity to have babies later on. So the longer he has the procedure, let's say a guy's 21, he's like, I'm not ready. I want to screw around. I want to have fun. I want to, sow my oats, and I want to just do my thing. Every year that he's doing this, he wants to have a kid when he's 28. He's got his time frame done. He's not. There's like a 95% chance that when he's ready to have kids, he can't. So I get that. I get the fear with dudes and their parts or whatever, and they're terrified. So anyway, so we have all of these things. So there's no type of in between. There's not a medical procedure, or there was, but that also affects women. I'm not saying that I think that terminating a pregnancy is something that you should overlook. It's terrifying for women. It's something you don't forget. It's a medical procedure that messes with your body. A lot of the times, if it's not done properly, that woman can never have a child again. There are so many different things that we have to take into consideration. This isn't something that we could just take willy nilly and just hope for the best. So I had to take a break, and so if I sound a little bit weirder than I did before, I had to actually fix the audio. So anyway, so about just being dismissive about the procedure with women, I already discussed that. So with that being said, and that clearly being understood, there is even more information. So I know that it's hard to hear about problems without letting somebody choose what they want to do with their body. So those who have nothing to do where they live, they don't care about where the kids are going to live, if they eat, are they traumatized, are they neglected, or they see a seed, right? The long term issues of a child that isn't wanted and the cycle of childhood trauma that comes with people deciding their fate without ever getting to know what they go through. This is a huge issue. And I get, I don't want to say I don't get the value of life. I do. But life means two things. Life could be the beginning process of you being pregnant and you knowing that something is growing in your body. And this is not solely for women. There's also men that understand that they have a child and that they want to have a huge part of that, when they go through the steps. They're, even if you're not with the person that that you knocked up, you go on doctor's visits, you see sonograms, you do all of this. Look, I'm not saying that this is just in one category or this only applies to certain people. It doesn't. There's a wide range of things that are happening. My point of this whole thing was to clearly understand that this is not just black and white. That there are pieces of information that are out there that people choose to ignore or can't get that information. There are people out there that are good people and they really want to help. But being helpful and ignoring the situations of individuals are very, very different. If you want to help out, instead of paying money, you go to Hobby Lobby, right? And you get a sign, you get some paint, and then you get like 20 of your neighbors, and then you guys are building these signs, and then you go and you waste gas, you get everybody on a bus, you stand in front of a clinic, everybody screaming and shouting hateful shit. You could have like put money towards a food bank, where kids are actually born and need food. You could put that towards school supplies. They, my whole thing is, you can't really judge if you don't want to be a part of the solution, right? So by you yelling and screaming and trying to put people down and not understanding their situations, then you're part of the problem. Now, if you take that same energy and you try to help, then again, you are now part of a solution. And I don't mean like an end solution, like you're gonna watch this kid grow up until he goes to college. But you're a part of the beginning process, the part that you feel is so important, not just being inside of the belly, but understanding that it's a person, right? They're people. So when you get to that point of giving birth, you're not talking about the steps of pregnancy. Now there is a human being that requires a birth certificate, social security card, food, diapers, wipes, clothes. People really just don't have that down pat before they begin to judge. You want to be helpful, there are ways to do that through your community, individually. It doesn't really matter. We don't have to start telling people that no matter what their situation is, they have to do this one thing because you treasure life in one form and not the other. Living is living. I am right now living and I am breathing. If I were pregnant right now, my baby would be living and breathing through me. Why would I choose to bring a child into a world that I couldn't help, that I couldn't feed, that I'd be angry at, that I would resent? Not saying we just gotta live in a throwaway society like we throw away iPhones. Not saying that. I'm saying that a support group, that somebody says, hey, things will get better. Hey, I can't do much, but here's, a pack of baby wipes. You have no idea these tiny little things and how helpful they could be. Instead of screaming and yelling and telling somebody that they're murderers or they're horrible people, and that they're going to burn in hellfire forever and ever and ever. If we can't get out of that mindset, nothing's going to change. People that CAC are thriving. That woman, Jody Hall, she was thriving. She got busted because she was giving commissary. And she would give them, there's a way to pay for tablets. And she paid for tablets for a lot of these women. The same way they record your phone calls, they record your emails. You don't get to buy them a tablet outside and send it. You have to give them money and they buy the one that's given to them in prison. So it's their property and they can do whatever the hell they want. This is how she got busted. Could you imagine how many times she was doing this before? And yes, there is a case that she had going, I want to say 10, maybe a little bit longer than that, years ago, where she was doing the same thing in Hawaii and transporting children. She's not new to this game. All we have to take into consideration now is the longest term limit of her being incarcerated would be 10 years. So the only thing we could hope for is that she's terrified to go to jail and she starts snitching on everybody else that's part of this problem. This is not a local problem. This is a worldwide problem. I'm doing this because I think that in order to seriously preserve our children, to seriously preserve a way of life where we have that under control, this is the way we have to have this discussion. It's got to be tough. It's got to be direct. There has to be proof. There's got to be research. There are evil people out there on both sides. I don't ever want to feel like I'm one of the people that are forcing somebody to do something and they're not going to protect it or be a part of it. That I get to judge, and then I go home and I get to lay in my bed and I get to eat my food and I get to get back up the next day and judge some more and not even have a second thought about the lady I berated the day before. I don't. She's not a thought to me. I don't get to see her today, so I'm just gonna berate the next woman that goes to the same place. If you can't connect, in my personal opinion, keep your mouth shut. That's it. Keep your mouth shut. Put your money where your mouth is. Start helping people to create life and ensure that we have a tribal community where we can help. $2, $3. You don't look, if you're worried about who the mom is and you don't want to give her money, fine. Don't give her shit. Go and buy diapers. You're worried about that? Rip the diapers open so she can't sell. The things that I hear from people. This is not my first go around on research, and I try to get information from everybody. When I speak these things, I actually talk to both sides. I want to know what they're thinking and what they're doing. And a lot of people are just concerned the same way they're concerned with giving a homeless guy $1. Oh, he's going to take that and buy drugs, or he's going to buy liquor. Who gives a shit? His life sucks. Don't give him $1 for liquor. Buy him a bottle. If you're not going to take him to your house, you're not going to wash his clothes, you're not going to get his hair cut, you're not going to give him like a resume, you're not going to speak up for him to present him for a job, then shut up. This is the world that we live in, that we don't tell this stuff directly to these people. We have to be able to share the responsibility, especially if we're the ones with the loudest voices. Speak up. Nobody's telling you to keep your, to keep your voice down. But speak up and back it up. Back it up. It's not that hard. Look at what's going on with the animals. Look at what's going on with the children. Look what's happening with the mothers and the fathers. I don't want anybody to walk away from this and think that I only meant this towards women. There are dads out there that are amazing. Amazing. Love their children and would do anything for them. You're also telling them they don't have a choice in anything. If their pregnant wife goes to the hospital and he has they find out that she might pass away unless there's a procedure done, he has to sit there and watch his wife die and his child. It's kind of like the conundrum. I'm gonna bring this up, and this is something that's super weird, and I'm not gonna give my answer because I kind of want to leave that because I'm still torn on it. Okay, so here's the thing. So they say you and your wife are driving on the road, and then it's like raining and stuff, and then you swerve off the road, and your car goes. You, your wife, and your child are in the car. And then you're driving down the road, it's all slick and it's rainy, and you go off a bridge. Now the car goes down into the water. So at that moment, you're the only one who's able to get out of your seat. And I'm not saying a man or a woman, by the way. I'm saying either or. The whole purpose of this is the child. Do you save your spouse or do you save your child? I'm not going to give my answer, but I'm going to give the two answers that almost everybody split upon. One, you let your spouse die because you rather your child be able to grow up and, you rather mourn your spouse than mourn your child. Then you have the other half that says that you would let your child pass. And I said child, not adult ass kid, but a child, because you would rather, this is going to sound bad, but you would rather stay with your spouse because you could always have more children. You've been with them longer. Like I said, this is like one of those things that tear you up. You've been with them longer. You can have other children, and you have a connection to your child, but you had to make that decision at that moment. Tearing people up like that is exactly the reason why I did this episode, because I really feel like it's that kind of a conundrum, because you can't put anybody in any position and not understand it or be in it. You can't. The reason why I don't want to give my answer is not because I'm a punk. It's literally because I really don't know. I really don't know. I've never been in that position before. Everybody will have an opinion, and everybody always does. But if you're not in that position, the same way I brought up this kind of a discussion and talked about CACs and talked about the threat that's happening to children, whether you're having them or you don't have the ability to take care of them, or you don't have the ability to make your own choices in your own life, then yes, think about what you would do if you were in the place of that vehicle. If that if that car was underwater, if you had a split second to make a decision, what would you actually do? So when I put this video up, that's pretty much my question. If you want to debate me on all the other stuff, that's fine. But the whole thing right now is to answer that question. To be able to say, I would save my spouse or I would save my child. And a lot of people that I've talked to, because I actually do surveys before I do a lot of these shows, especially when I know I have to, like, I don't want to pick a side. So anyway, so I did a small survey before I did this. And a lot of people kind of said, well, not a lot of people, but a little bit, like maybe 2 or 3 people said that the reason why they would, if this sounds shitty, but the reason why they would pick the spouse other than the child is because they didn't know how the child would grow up. And here's kind of where I'm going with that. So you don't know if your child would be a Jeffrey Dahmer. You don't know if your child would eventually disavow you and you would never be able to talk to your kid again. Like the chance of that kid being who you want that kid to be is so low on the spectrum because they're children and not adults. But if you know your spouse and you've been with them for a certain amount of years, it might be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever. You know pretty much where you stand with that person. You know what they're about, their ins and outs, everything that you feel like you need to know and don't have to take a chance on. So whether that's horrific for you to hear or think about, it's one of those things like the chicken and the egg. So I'm gonna end it here. This was a tough one. It was for me. I'm hoping that you walk away with something. You're either going to do one or two things. You're going to have a better understanding about the decisions that we all make and how we choose to express them, or you're going to be more on the side of, I'm right in my own thing. I don't give a shit what anybody else says. This is how I feel. That's fine. Everybody's opinion counts. We don't all have to agree, and we know that because we all don't. My biggest question will be, please, I would love to get more people to answer this question. What would you do? And I'm going to say it again. What would you do if you, your spouse, and your child were in a vehicle on a wet road? Your vehicle swerved off of a bridge and went under the water. You'd be the male or the female in this situation, were able to escape the vehicle and have a choice to spare your spouse or your significant other or your child. What would you choose? You don't have to tell me why, but what would you choose? So I'm going to leave it there. So, of course, I had to literally bring up something that would boggle your mind at the end of this, but I'm hoping that you participate. So I'm going to leave it there. My name is Trinity. This is Lovespiracy. There will be a lot more shows to completely mess your mind up. I will always have a trigger warning, by the way. If you stayed this long, I'm hoping that you're okay. Just keep an eye out on children. Take into consideration that there are ways that you can help. I will try to leave as many links as I can to support, schools or babies or hospitals or, young mothers. That's the whole thing. It's just some way that we can kind of help everybody in our own little way without being hateful and hurtful. So, thanks for sticking around. I'll have a new show in a couple of days. Thank you for listening. Again, I am your host, Trinity. This is Love Spiracy, and I love you all.